Hello, everybody, and welcome to our weekly class. And today we have a very exciting topic on foreclosures. As you know, it doesn't really matter um, where we are in the world. It seems to me that wherever I travel, when I talk about foreclosure, everybody understands that foreclosure is the place where you can get the good deals, good real estate deals. It doesn't matter if you're in America, South America, Europe, Asia. Foreclosure is kind of the one of the most popular places where people know you can get the best deals, and everybody wants to know how they can participate. And because it seems like nobody really teaches you how you can win these deals at the auction. And today we're going to share some of these tips and secrets so you can be well prepared to win some of the deals for your next foreclosure auction. And indeed, the foreclosure auction is a great place to get good deals. Typically you get a 50 to 75% off of the market value. And so you can get a lot of lucrative deals at the auctions. In fact, I know some hedge funds actually specialize in buying at foreclosure auctions. And when you're buying at 50 to 75% of market value, you are already in the money, right? It's what we call you're in the money when you buy the property. So you stand to make a good profit. Now let's take a look at this video that I took recently at a foreclosure auction just a few months ago. And just without, kind of really going into details of what's going on, let's just watch the video and let's see what you can get out. Okay, so that's basically it. I'm gonna cut it out. We're gonna go back to the beginning of the video here. Now, on the surface level, right? This is what's going on. Number one, it's quite loud and it's hard to hear the person that's talking, this lady. The second thing is that it's a little bit chaotic, but there is order to this chaos, right? So everyone seems to know what they're doing. And there's actually a lot more going on, as you can kind of see, kind of further into, kind of beyond this group of folks. There's more people over there. So what's going on, right? There's a lot of stuff going on. And at the end of this class, right, after we go over these top 10 tips, we're gonna revisit this video, and you're gonna be able to see and kind of break down everything that's going on in this video and what everyone's doing. All right, so sounds like a good deal. And then another kind of natural question is, within, being a part of this foreclosure auction, how do I win these deals? And what are some of the risks and how can I minimize the risk, right? So we want to be very cognizant of the risk that we'll be getting into if we participate in these auctions. And our promise to you is that at the end of this webinar, you'll understand how you can win deals while minimizing your risk, right? There are things you can do to minimize the risk. And this class is for new investors that are looking for knowledge to get started, right? Start buying properties. Or if you're an experienced investor and you're not familiar with foreclosure auctions, this would be a good place too. A lot of what I find is that a lot of investors, even if you have acquired a whole portfolio of properties, maybe they don't even need to participate in the auction to acquire these deals. There are different venues and channels where you can source great deals. If you want to add the foreclosure as one of the channels where you can source deals, this is certainly one place where you can gain that knowledge. From an exit strategy standpoint, all right, it's good for wholesale, fix and flip, or buy and hold at a big discount. And I have found that, when I have the habit of turning off notification, it really helps me focus, and that's how I can get the most out of an important class like this. And also, feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself, share your contact information, and where you live and all that. Who knows? Maybe you'll be able to connect with somebody who is also participating in this class that are in the same area, and make an effort to connect and set up a meeting after the class. This is important because over the years, we have found that people who network in the same class tend to end up kind of pulling the resources together and partner up together. Either partner up on a deal together or helping each other in their businesses. So make sure you really take advantage of everything that this class has to offer, all the tools that are in front of you. Be present and make the most out of it. Make quality connections. And disclaimer: this class is for education purposes only, and we don't offer investment, financial, or legal advice. Just some quick words about myself as a speaker, and I'm an executive partner of Real Estate IQ. And over the years of building the company, I have acquired, kind of picked up a lot of skill sets, such as marketing and using data to come up with intelligence augmentation, and so on and so forth. So if any of these kind of topics is interesting to you, I'm very passionate about talking about some of these. And my background is in science and engineering, so a very technical background. And I was always interested in real estate, and I was very intrigued initially about the passive nature of being a landlord. Now, if you're a landlord, you may argue, "Oh, well, I have tenants and toilets. There's a lot of things I gotta worry about. It's not a fully passive role." But at the same time, when you are a landlord and you got an asset that's producing and making money for you, it's real estate as an asset is making money even when you're sleeping. And that's even also before I learned about the wealth building techniques in real estate, which makes it even more attractive as a kind of vehicle to not just make money, but to also build wealth. And so, really awesome, I guess, place for us to be here and learn about real estate investments and how we can kind of build generational wealth for our family, right? Now, the struggle I have found is that, number one, it was hard to get the knowledge we need in real estate investments. It's kind of, hard to find, right? The schools, they don't teach you. And then it's also hard to find the good information and data for us to do the outreach and find the deals. And then third is that it was difficult to connect with the right mentors and entrepreneurs to help us grow our business. And so those are the three main struggles we saw. And that's why we established Real Estate IQ, really to solve these problems. One is to offer webinars and classes to offer the knowledge. We really believe that education is the ultimate equalizer, and that's what empowers us to kind of rise up to the level that we aspire to be in. And we also offer distressed seller data to help you find and win the deals. And finally, we offer mentorship and a deal makers community, right? Basically a support system that you need in order to succeed. I find it very difficult myself to do deals by myself. Just when I was starting out, it's very hard to know everything that we need to know to kind of participate in a deal and expect to do very well. I find it much more comfortable to work with someone who already has the experience, and then we are kind of either sharing resources or I bring something to the table, and we kind of achieve that success together. I find it a lot easier. Now, without further ado, we're going to go straight into now the content that we have prepared for you. So we're gonna kind of really get started and talk about these 10 deal winning tips. Okay. So first of all, there are two types of foreclosures. You may have heard about the bank foreclosure. Bank foreclosure is when the owner owes the bank money, not able to afford a mortgage, for example. And then the other one is the tax foreclosure, in which case the owner owes the government taxes, and the government has the right after an amount of time to then put the house in a tax foreclosure. And there's some nuances. We're going to go into that a little bit. Now, each county is a little bit different when it comes to where the foreclosure takes place. So where and when the foreclosure takes place. So make sure you do your research. In Texas, for example, foreclosure auctions take place on the first Tuesday of every month. And we call it Super Tuesday or the Tuesday auction. If you're in Florida, it's auctioned on a weekly basis as another example. So make sure you do your research on your local county. And let's talk about the bank foreclosures, right? Bank foreclosures happen when an owner stops paying their mortgage. And the lender, in most cases, it's the bank, right? Or it's a note servicer or note holder can reinforce the lien on the house to recover the loan balance. And the implication for investors is that you usually get clean title, except for unpaid property taxes or municipal liens, and there's little or no redemption period for the owner. Okay, obviously it varies by state, so you want to research kind of the redemption rules of your state. But in general, little to no redemption period. And then we're going to talk a little bit about tax foreclosures, but we're going to mainly focus on the bank foreclosures. Okay, tax foreclosures can get a little more complicated. This happens usually, it's triggered by unpaid property taxes, and usually they're like 2 to 3 years delinquent to kind of trigger that. And the government will force a sale, and it could be different parts of the government. It could be the county, right? It could be the city, or it could be the city, the school district that forces the sale. And as an investor, let's say you win, you win the bid, you don't get immediate ownership on the house. The original owner can reclaim the property, what we call within that redemption period, and that redemption period, again, also varies by state. So you want to, depending on what state you are participating in this, you want to do your thorough research. But within that redemption period, the owner can reclaim it by paying the purchase price and taxes and the penalty. So if you own that lien on this tax foreclosure, you make a little bit of return if the owner decides to reclaim the property. So you still make some money. But if you're mainly focused on acquiring a property for investment purposes, then you typically don't want to renovate the house until after the redemption period. So you want to be careful of that. Essentially, you're buying a redeemable deed and not the final title during the tax foreclosure. So pay a lot of attention to the redemption period when you participate in the tax foreclosures. And we prepared a side-by-side comparison between bank foreclosures and tax foreclosures. And you can take a look at, maybe take a screenshot of this slide. Now, for the purpose of this class, we're going to focus more on the bank foreclosures because the title side is a little bit easier. And most folks are more familiar with bank foreclosures and are more interested in bank foreclosures. Tax foreclosure is more or less a specialty within the real estate investment world. And if you're interested in tax foreclosures, it can be very lucrative as well. In fact, I I know some folks have done very well with tax foreclosures. And if you're really interested in that, I suggest that you seek out the right classes and education to really go deep in that before you really start participating in these tax foreclosures. Right? Really know what you're getting into, understand all that, understand the risk and the process and the know-how, right, before you jump into it. Anyway, bank foreclosure is what we're going to focus on here. Now, the second tip is that in order to bid, you need to first register as a bidder. Okay, so you don't just show up and then you go, oh, I'm gonna bid on the house, on the property, on the house. You need to register first, okay, in order to bid. Some of you may know of auction.com or some other auction websites. Okay, so in order to, some of the houses either they are go into the auction at physically, or like kind of in person at the county area, county courthouse, or they are being auctioned off online as well. So auction.com, for example, or like maybe Xome, XOME.com is another example. For auction.com, in order to register as a bidder, you would need to transfer $1,000 first. And that $1,000 is refundable, but you need to kind of show that you are, I guess you got to put some money in the game in order to participate in the bidding. Okay, next, let's talk about the foreclosure process, right? And here we're going to focus more on, like I said, on the bank foreclosure process. So for the bank foreclosure process, the borrower becomes delinquent in terms of their mortgage payments. And usually, more than 4 months of mortgage payments, this will kind of trigger the foreclosure process. The lender would order a trustee to send the letter of demand. And when that happens, the borrower has at least 30 days to pay off the delinquent payment. Or what happens is there will be a notice of default that gets filed and an intent to accelerate the mortgage note. And then it takes about 20 days for that to happen. And after the cure period expires, right, when the borrower kind of misses that cure period, then the lender gets to file a notice of sale. And we're going to take a look at an example of the notice of sale in a little bit. And that happens at least 21 days before the next auction. So, as an example, so let's say our upcoming auction is on the 2nd of the month, for example, and today is the 15th. Again, I'm making an example, and that's less than 21 days away. So it's not going to go into the auction in the upcoming auction, but it's gonna go into the next month's auction. So that's what the at least 21 days is. If the upcoming auction date is less than 21 days, then it's not gonna go into this upcoming auction, but the one next coming up next. And the property will get auctioned typically at a courthouse step. Again, every county is different. Some counties have it in a conference center. They have a lot of properties going to auction. Some counties, are in a courthouse, in front of the courthouse. And a lot of times it's kind of outdoors too. So like the video that I shared earlier is actually outdoors, which is why it was so loud. There was a lot of traffic, noises, and then people kind of talking over each other too. It's typically, between 10 and 4 p.m., 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And so it's either gonna get sold to the highest bidder, or it gets reverted back to the foreclosing lender and becomes a real estate owned property, REO. Now, so why the either or, right? So typically, a lender has a minimum amount that they would specify. So if the bids are, so let's say the minimum amount is 100,000. If all the bids are under that $100,000, then the property is gonna revert and go back to the lender. But if the bids go above that minimum, in this case, 100,000, let's say the bid went up to 120,000 to the of the highest bidder, then the house is going to go to the bidder that bids 120,000 because it's already above that minimum amount specified by the lender. Okay, and if you have questions, if I didn't explain a particular concept very clearly, feel free to post your questions on the chat, and we can discuss more after, and we can discuss your questions. Okay, number 4, we gotta know how to find properties going into the auction. This is public data, public information, but it's not easy to find, right? It's the information is not easy to find. So we're gonna share with you how you can find this information. Okay, so what you want to do is to Google, and you can either Google, the name of your county, notice of sale, or the name of your county, foreclosures. And usually it will pull up the right link. Some counties may be a little bit harder to find, but if you just dig in a little bit further, you should be able to find the right website and find kind of figure out where you can find these foreclosure notices. You can also find it at the courthouse. It gets posted in front of the courthouse as well, and it will be kind of on paper. You have to flip through all of them and maybe take pictures of them. If you can find them online, well, they're going to be digitized, and it's going to be a lot easier to locate the information that you need. So a notice of sale looks like this. This is an example of a notice of trustee sale. You get the foreclosure date here. What time, right? This one says it's between 10 and 4 o'clock. Beginning not earlier than 1 p.m. and not later than 3 hours later. So actually, it's between 1 and 4 p.m. Right? So if you want this particular house, you want to show up between 1 and 4 o'clock. You don't have to be there for 6 hours. That's good. That's good news. And then you have about 3 hours there, and you got to figure out who the trustee is and all that stuff from here. And then you get the property address, the legal description, and everything. So a lot of information are on this notice of sale. Now, if you're fortunate, if you're lucky, there may be companies in your local area that provide these foreclosure lists, right? They sell these. If that is the case, then the question is, should you pull the information yourself, or should you buy, right? Do we DIY or do we buy? Here are the kind of average monthly filings in different metro area. And if you're in a metro that are not listed here, we can cover those as well. We have a service called customized lease binding services that we go into the metro that you request, and we can pull this information for you. We can mine this information. Now, as you can see, we're talking about hundreds at least, right? For a lot of these metro area, up to 1,000, couple thousand for the bigger metro. And so there are so many filings that it's usually not recommended to do it by yourself. It just takes too much work. It takes too much time. As an entrepreneur, I would say if I spend a lot of my time mining the information, then it's taking my time away from doing the actual due diligence and kind of figuring out what the right amount it is that I need to bid on the property, which is a better kind of use of my time. All of doing this is kind of, low value labor work. It's much easier to outsource it. I have learned how to do it myself, just so I know how the work gets done, and I appreciate, the people that are doing the work, and I can kind of know how well the work is done. But after I learn how it's done, I usually don't do it because it's such a low value work. Like if I'm gonna spend 1 or 2 hours every day on this particular effort, man, I'm gonna end up doing all that, just researching and getting the information. Well, it doesn't really get me to point B, which is being able to bid on the property. So it's much easier for me to hire somebody to do all this research, and then I can do the actual intelligent work, which is the due diligence and the research it requires to come up with the right offer and the maximum bid that I would bid on any property, so I don't lose money. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, make sure you focus your time on high value activities. Some examples of high value activity is lead generation, marketing, due diligence, contacting distressed sellers, for example. So here are some key elements, right? Speaking of purchasing, if we're gonna buy a list, like what does a quality list look like? So these are a couple of quality information. From a property information standpoint, you want to know who you want to really important is to know the trustee who's gonna be auctioning off the property. Actually, I'm gonna be sharing that as one of the tips later on. Right? You want to know the trustee. And then you want to know the property information, right? Sometimes having the address. What's weird with these foreclosure filings is that not every property's address is on the filing. Sometimes it's just a legal description. So you have to go and research and figure out what the address is and what the zip code is. Sometimes I want to only focus on a particular zip code or a particular city because that's the area that I want to focus on purchasing deals on. And it's much easier if that work is already done, and then I just focus on the filtering, right? And focusing my attention on the deals that I want to bid on. Subdivision, legal description, and the characteristic of the property, like bedroom, bathroom, square footage. And then some of this financial information is interesting too, because it kind of gives you the insight on the property and what's going on with it. As an example, if the house was recently purchased and they still have a very high unpaid balance, I would note that the lender typically would be unwilling to take a loss and accept a low bid. And so typically they would want to they are willing to take a loss, but not a huge loss. Versus if a house has been, I guess, if a mortgage has been kind of performing for the past, let's say 10, 15 years, and there has been a lot of equity that has built up, number one. And number two, the borrower has been paying quite a bit of interest. That gives the lender more room, more margin to have a lower minimum bid amount, as an example. So some of this financial information is useful. Okay. Number 5, let's talk about our exit strategies, and we're gonna just talk about the top 3 exit strategies, which is wholesale, fix and flip, and buy and hold. And depending on which exit strategy you have, you're gonna come up with a maximum allowable offer. So number 5 and 6 is kind of related, right? Based on your exit strategy, you're gonna have your maximum allowable offer that you can bid for each property. And we're going to talk about buy and hold first. Okay, so let me share an example. Some of you may have seen this slide before. We shared this as an example in couple of our classes to really home in on the buy and hold strategy. So for buy and hold strategy, what we want to do is to follow the 1% rule of thumb. And basically, that 1% says that our monthly rent should be at least 1% of our total overall investment for the property. So if I put in $250,000, I want to make $2,500 a month at least. Now, the way we do that is we want to come up with an estimated rent, and that's by doing a comparative market analysis, right? So I want to know in the area how much the rent is going for in that typical area. So let's say it's giving me $2,500 a month right now. That means the most I would invest in the property is $250,000 to fit that 1%. Okay, so I kind of back myself into this. And in this example, if the repair budget, right, how much it costs to kind of fix up the house is $20,000, then the most I would offer is $230,000 because I got buy it for $230,000. I have to add $20,000 to fix up the house. The total out of pocket is $250,000, or total investment is $250,000, and then it's covered by the 1% rule, right? $2,500 rent. You may have a question about wholesale fee. We're going to talk about it when we talk about wholesale, but this is what the number will look like. Now, in the next slide, we're going to go over this, why this 1%, right? Why that 2,500? So as an example, the 2,500 will cover mortgage, property taxes, insurance, if there's HOA, and obviously there's always some level of maintenance on the house. And so after you subtract all that, you can earn a decent monthly cash flow, right? So that's how much you earn as how much cash you collect as a landlord. So what's really cool is that as a landlord, this is one house, right? This is how much I'll cash flow from one house. If I have 10 of these, then I'll make $5,750 a month, which is roughly $69,000 a year. If I have 20 houses, then I'll make $138,000 a year. And that's a pretty good way to kind of make money by just letting an asset, right, producing for you. And I think that's all I'm going to talk about for this. Just a very last comment is that for buy and hold is a wealth generator. You got a couple of things working for you. You got cash flow, which I just shared, right? From a monthly rent, I get a cash flow. I also get appreciation, which hedges us against inflation. So two types of appreciation. One is a natural appreciation. That's kind of inflation, right? And then a forced appreciation means that I'm fixing up the house to improve the value of the property. So that's what forced appreciation means. We also get tax savings from depreciation, mortgage interest and operating expenses. And then we also get to pay down the loan every month. So we're building up equity. So 4 things kind of working for you to build that wealth. Next, let's talk about fix and flip, right? That's a 70% rule of thumb. And let's talk about how to apply it to fix and flip deals. So in this example, let's say the after repair value is 500,000. So what that is I gotta run a comparative market analysis, right? Which is figuring out how much the houses around me are selling for in their kind of pristine condition. And let's say in this case, all these houses are telling me that 500,000. Then we do the 70% rule, multiply this by 70%, then we get 350,000. And then if we subtract the repair budget, then we get our distress offer. So again, to kind of go back from the bottom up is that we buy at 280,000, we put $70,000 in it, so the total amount invested is 350,000. Then that's the 70% of what the after repair value is. And for completeness, we're gonna also kind of explain what the 30% is. You may have seen some of these slides in some of our classes. We like really kind of discussing these models, and sometimes repetition is great because it takes several times to really kind of understand the model. And so, so again, if you have seen these slides, you feel free to skip it if you would like, or just kind of keep listening to it, and because maybe just hearing it several times is gonna, I guess, improve the understanding of these different kind of models and how we come up with this offer. Because the maximum allowable offer as a concept is one of the most important things in real estate investment. It makes sure that you don't lose money, right? By understanding how the money work, how the numbers work. Okay, so let's talk about, okay, if it's a 70% rule, what happened to the other 30%? All right, so we're going to talk about that 30%, okay? And which part is actually our profit. So as an example, 30% of that 500,000 is $150,000. Now there are closing costs. When we're fixing up the house, we have holding cost and maintenance, right? There is utility fees, right? Utility bills. You have maybe there's a HOA. You gotta pay HOA. You gotta pay taxes. So all kinds of money that you gotta pay to hold the property. And then closing costs includes agent commission and title insurance. Another holding cost is home insurance while you're holding the property. And then you have financial costs, right? So usually when you're buying a property for fix and flip, you are leveraging. You use some kind of hard money or private money leverage. And because of that, it's a short-term loan that has a relatively higher interest that allows you to get financing without the stringent requirements from the bank. So you can leverage someone else's money to make money. And a lot of folks are very glad to kind of pay for this additional financial cost because you get to kind of leverage someone else's money to make this profit. And if you run the math, you see that a certain amount of leverage actually makes sense for those that kind of embrace debt and embrace good debt to produce profit. So without diving too much into it, let's say you get financing from a hard money lender or private money lender to do the fix. Well, you have to pay the interest and on the money that you borrow, and also the fees that you incur. And so let's say you subtract all that. Well, you still make a good, $90,000, which is a very handsome profit. And that's a fantastic return for just one project, right? So imagine doing 2 projects or 4 projects a year. Fix and flip as a business can be very lucrative. And last but not least, I want to talk about the wholesale model. And what you do is you're buying the house at a low enough price to sell it to other investors. So you either sell it to a buy and hold investor, or you sell it to a fix and flip investor. And in the 2 scenarios, right? Let's say I want to sell it to a buy and hold investor. Well, in the previous example for buy and hold, I need to add my wholesale fee here before I put in the offer. So typically, we say about $10,000 on average of wholesale fees is a good number to make. So let's say I want to make $10,000, then I put it in here, and instead of offering $230,000, I offer $220,000. So if I'm acquiring it at the foreclosure auction, and I want to make my wholesale fee the maximum I would bid on is 220,000. And if I can win the house for, say, less than that, right? Let's say I won the bid at 200,000. Well, I can charge as much as $30,000 in wholesale fees and still be able to help the buy and hold investor make money. And that's a really cool place to be. Right? You don't necessarily make 10,000. Maybe you can unlock a way to make $30,000 for the deal, $100,000 for the deal, depending on the deal. And if you sell it to a fix and flip investor, then you use the same kind of structure for that formula. You use the 70% formula, and let's say in this case I want to make $20,000 in my wholesale fee. Well, then in that case, the maximum I would bid is 260,000. Or again, if I won this deal at 200,000, well, then I can make a wholesale fee of $80,000, and the fix and flip investor can still profit, and they don't mind. They will still appreciate a good deal. And so as a wholesaler, you can see that you might be able to kind of make a lot of money on one deal if you acquire it at a low enough price. Cool. I hope that makes sense. Again, if you have questions, feel free to ask questions. And we have weekly office hours that you can join if you prefer like a one-on-one kind of let's go over the actual numbers. Now, another thing I want to kind of share with you is that these numbers are kind of idealized numbers, right? In real life, it's not that pretty and all well-rounded. And there are some fees here and there, right? That changes the actual number. And so in a real life case, you may see that the numbers may look slightly different. And that's natural. We're just trying to kind of simplify the concept into something that's easy to understand. And in a real life case, based on the different kind of fees and what the situation is, what the interest rate currently is, and so on and so forth, the actual number is going to be different. But what I think these examples serve really well is that by understanding the 1% rule of thumb for buy and hold and the 70% rule of thumb for fix and flip, your 99.9% of the chance of the cases, you always make money, right? You won't lose money if you do the right things and you follow this formula. All right. I think we spent enough time on the maximum allowable offer. So we're going to talk about number 7, okay? Got to do your real estate valuation. So that's another big fundamental skill set for a real estate investor is being able to do a really good high fidelity real estate valuation. And there are 2 important numbers that you want to get really good at doing. And it's usually it's the same process, right? Using real market data to come up with number 1, after repair value, right? That's what we need for a kind of fix and flip number. And you got to know the market rent, which is good for buy and hold. And usually when I kind of evaluate a deal, I kind of always like to look at both of these numbers because it will tell me which exit strategy works best and which strategy, if it's flexible, right? If both strategies work, that's going to tell me, hey, this is a really awesome deal. And maybe one or the other numbers work better, one or the other exit strategy works better, then it will also kind of tell us, okay, this is the way to go. Another maybe a little more advanced items is that in addition to market rent, there's also short-term rental or like mid-term rental or co-living model, right? So you can potentially create more cash flow as a than a market rent. When we talk about market rent, we're looking at long-term rental, long-term rent. We're not going to talk about all these kind of short-term rental and potential higher cash flow scenario. In this case, really it's because when you're running a short-term rental, you're kind of running an accommodation, a hospitality business, and when you are doing long-term rental, you can very easily outsource it to a property manager, and you have really good occupancy usually, instead of a short-term rental. You have occupancy type of a situation or occupancy kind of factor they gotta factor in. So to kind of keep things a little more organized, right, we're gonna focus more on the long-term rental. And for real estate valuation, what's important is to run a comparative market analysis, or what we call a CMA. So looking at the market, right, all the comparables that are on the market, how much do they sell for? How much do they sell for? That's going to give me the ARV, after repair value. How much do they rent for? It's going to give me the market rent. And we're going to just talk a little bit briefly about best approaches to CMA. So best approaches to CMA is these couple of things to kind of set up the parameter, right, on which ones are comparable, right? The keyword is comparable for a CMA. You want to know, you want to look at the distance, right? How far? If it's too far away, maybe it's not a comp anymore. You want to look at recency. Recency is how recently the house was last sold. If it was sold 5 years ago, that's not really market value data anymore. You want it to be as close as possible. Ideally, the last 30 days, the last 90 days would be really good, because the real estate value and real estate prices is seasonal. So the more recent, the better, typically 90 days. You want to look at square footage, right? A small house, a cottage, and a big mansion, completely different type of valuation. A year built, right? Obviously a new house and a house that was built in 1920s, completely different material, age and all that stuff. So you want to be kind of similar. And then ideally you want the houses to be in the same subdivision, because they tend to be in built by the same or similar builders, and they're true comparables. So some rule of thumb, and these are just kind of guidance. We put 1 mile for distance. Ideally, it's actually a quarter mile if possible. Recency, at most 360 days, but ideally 90 days. Square footage is plus and minus 20% of the house that we're trying to evaluate. So if the house is say 2,000 square feet, then you're gonna go. You want to pick out the comparables that are 1,600, between 1,600 and 2,400, which is within that plus minus 20% of 2,000. And then year built, as an example, let's say it was built in year 2000. You go from 1990 to 2010, and then you try to choose the same subdivision if possible. Then you're going to choose the best 3 to 4 comparables as the basis to come up with your valuation for the ARV, after repair value, and also for the market rent. So so I guess, maybe just to elaborate a little bit more, for after repair value, I'm looking for sold prices for the houses that have been sold in the area. For market rent, I'm looking for leased prices for the houses that have been leased in the area. Okay, let's move on. Number 8, you gotta know how to minimize your risk. 3 key questions that you need to answer. Okay, number 1, is the house is still there? If there are times where the house goes into a bank foreclosure, tax foreclosure, but actually there's no house there anymore. It's just a plot of land. And if you're bidding on the property as if the house was still there, and you're bidding, you put down a big bid on the house, and there's no house, then you're going to stand to make a big loss. Okay. The way to mitigate that risk is to hire someone to take photos for you. The market a price that I know of is that it's about $25 per property. You can hire someone to take a photo. So based on the photo, you can see the condition, or if the photo has no house, you know that there's no house there. The second one, what other liens are also on the house? Okay, so some key questions like, is the auction is it auctioning off the primary lien, or is it auctioning a secondary lien, right? Are there IRS liens and property tax liens, more senior liens on the property? So those are the things that you want to know, and you understand the seniority of the liens, so that you would know, if you end up, buying the property, is it now a clear title, or is there senior liens that I got to pay off before I can take title to the house? As we mentioned, municipal liens, right? Tax liens, they are more senior than the bank foreclosure liens. So you want to make sure you do those properly. And the answer to that is called a title research. So the market is kind of going for, I think a title company would charge around $200 on the title research. We offer that title research service for $40 to $75. The reason is that we are really focusing on doing research for the purpose of bidding on foreclosures, and we're not going as steep in terms of going 30-year research on a property per se, because it's not needed for the purpose of foreclosure auctions. So we are pricing it at between 40 to 75 per research. And then number 3, how much does it cost to fix the house? So if you have the photos, you can at least kind of see the exterior of what's needed to be done on the house. And this is something that you have to take a risk on, because you can't walk the house and come up with a rehab budget. And so you have to kind of really do some rough estimation on how much it would cost to fix up the house, because remember, the rehab budget is part of your formula for your maximum allowable offer. Okay, so those are the 3 main questions you really got to answer before you bid on the house. Okay, all right, number 9. We got to know which trustee will be auctioning the property. Because if you really want to participate in the auction of a property, you're going to need to know who the trustee is. Where are they? When they show up, you got to know where they are, because sometimes they just kind of show up, they start auctioning, and maybe there are some auctioneers that are very loud and kind of really try to get as many people to participate as possible. But some trustees, different style, they're just reading off of the disclaimers or whatnot, and you really need to know where they are, and when they show up, you better be there, so you don't miss the chance of bidding on the property. Okay, so that's very important. You want to know what time frame they're gonna get bidded. The property is gonna be auctioning, and who the trustee is, and kind of when they show up, you gotta be there. And number 10, you want to have cashier's check ready, and get them ready and bring them with you. Experienced foreclosure bidders usually come with cashier's checks in different denominations. Okay, they have 50K, 30K, 20K, 10K. I think at least 10K, right? Let's say you have a lot. You still want to have, at most a 10K denomination. As an example, let's say you only have $100,000 in the cashier's check. and the property that you want to bid on turned out to be 70,000. Well, because you don't have, you can't break it up. You have to give them the 100K cashier's check. Well, now you have an extra $30,000, which is the difference. It's stuck with the courthouse, the county, for several weeks before they can get the money back to you. So what that means is now you have $30,000 that have been sitting around not producing for you. So usually for the experienced folks, they have these denominations. So let's say it's 70,000. Well, I got the 20K, I got the 50K, and then now I'm good. I can use the rest to bid on another property if I want. Right? So that's very important. They don't make change at the auction. So some bonus information, I want to give you this, and then we will look at the video. Okay, so the bonus, I want to kind of share the what happens during the auction or like after the auction. So after the auction, after the foreclosure, the borrower may still owe money after the foreclosure. If the total debt owed exceeds the foreclosure price, the lender may seek a deficiency judgment and go after the borrower. Okay, so the borrower may, in this case, they either owe money or they have to declare bankruptcy, right, in order to kind of deal with that. A bank foreclosure wipes out secondary liens, right, second mortgages or junior liens with proper notice, but it doesn't eliminate debt. So these lenders can still go after the borrower. And then federal, state, and local tax liens will survive. And so you need to pay them when you win the bid. So make sure you do the title searches properly. All right, so now let's play this video again. I got this this video back, and then we're gonna really talk about a little bit more nuance of what's going on. Okay, so it's just a 10-second video, I think. Okay, so this is what's going on. This lady is announcing disclaimers before she starts auctioning the property, and she has a stack. She actually has, this I guess a binder with different properties that she's auctioning off, and she's gonna read it off one by one as we go, and then the folks that are sitting on the other side, they're the ones that are gonna bid on the property if it's the right property that they want to bid on. You have this gentleman, Ryan, my friend, has a laptop, right? And he has a spreadsheet here with all the properties that he already did research on, and he knows exactly which deals he's going to bid on because he already did all the due diligence and everything that he needed. This lady, I also spoke with her afterwards. She has a paper version, and then she has highlighters and everything, right? And she's striking off the properties and kind of notating them as the auction happens. And then there's other folks that are also participating. So people come prepared, right? They did their homework already. They brought their printout or laptop, and they know how much they're going to bid on the property. All that work is already done before the auction. So they're only going to the auction to bid on the property and basically trying their best to win a property or two or more during the auction. And the auction happens at different spots. You got this one, this spot here. You got a service link auction that's happening over here. And then in the back, you have auction.com. So there are a couple of spots. And then, obviously you also have individual trustees that are just kind of standing there. And once they kind of get started, people will kind of crowd over and try to kind of hear the best they could and making sure that they don't miss on the property they want to bid on. Okay. So yeah, so many auctions can happen at the same time too. So you can have three properties being auctioned off at the same time by three different trustees. So it can be pretty chaotic. And if you really want to go and like you want to cover your bases, you want to have several folks that are on your team, on the same team, going in there and bidding on these properties. Okay, cool. So again, if you got questions, find us at our office hours. Find me at our office hours, and we'd love to answer your questions. All right. To recap, we have gone through the foreclosure process. We talked about the different type of foreclosure, and then we talked about how you can find and evaluate deals and all the due diligence that you need to do to minimize your risk, and then all the different things that you need to do in order to participate effectively in a foreclosure auction. So next, you may be wondering how you can get started. So let me just kind of share with you some success cases of our clients and our users. Right, first case, we have a client making $46,500 profit on a deal in Carrollton. He actually is kind enough to share the address of the property as well. And all these are kind of title company escrow printouts that he's able to share. So the second deal, 85,000. Next deal, 88,000, almost 89,000. So there's a lot of profit if you know how to win properties and win deals. There's you can make a great living, and you can also build wealth in the process. A lot of times our clients will kind of leverage, use these profits to purchase properties to hold and build wealth. So you might be wondering, how do I get started? Okay, so for those of you who are ready to take action, this is what we recommend that you do. Number one is you get a foreclosure list. The more research that's been done, the better. So you can, get firsthand data, exclusive research, and everything that you need to know about the houses that are going into foreclosure. For a limited time, there is a disruptive pricing that I'm sharing here. This price is not going to last a very long time. So, there's a QR code here that you can scan and take advantage of it. And then number two, I highly recommend finding a mentor coach, having that one-on-one attention to walk through how to do these deals. I personally find it extremely useful. I don't even know how to do it another way. It seems to me that when it comes to kind of these high value, high ticket deals, just having someone to walk you through it, someone that you trust, obviously, to kind of walk you through the first couple of deals until you learn the rope. I think I would even argue that it's necessary, like, having someone that kind of hold your hands and kind of show you the way. So we have a deal accelerator program that if you choose to participate, that's what we designed the program to do, is to give you that one-on-one hand holding and training and mentorship to get the deals done, get a couple of deals under your belt, and then you become a deal partner where we do deals together. This program is more appropriate for those that have already been through a training and coaching program and need more one-on-one attention in order to make a deal happen. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then step number three, do your due diligence. Right, you gotta get photos, right? Do the comms, and learn how to do a rehab budget, and then also title research. And as I mentioned, we offer title research services to help you economically, do the searches on any property that you choose to, and at a much more affordable price than a title company, for example. And then finally, when you're ready, go to the foreclosure auction and join the fund. We may see you there. Okay, before we end, share a couple more success stories here. Jordan, being a client for Real Estate IQ for in a month, he closed 2 deals and made $60,000. And Salvador, first deal, 30,000. And Ismail, consistently, getting deals and an average of 8,000 per deal, a total of 80,000 in the past 10 transactions. That's pretty good, right? Pretty good profit. So again, if you're ready to take action, you can scan this QR code to get started. Schedule a 30-minute in-depth consultation on what Real Estate IQ has to offer to help you find deals and win your first deal. And if you are not ready to kind of actively get started, but you want to continue to learn through seeing real cases and real deals, then you need to join our weekly Thursday program. This is at 11 a.m. Central Time. We kind of decided that was the best time because I think across the United States, doesn't matter what time zone you're in, that's a really good time to participate. This is a weekly live stream where we follow live deals that we're actively working on, right? We have a purpose of building a real estate portfolio in real life. And some of these deals we're actually offering to our community as well. But we're building this portfolio with a purpose of building wealth. And at first you can participate as an audience to kind of follow the deals and see how the deals are doing. We have about, I think, 10 deals right now that we're actively, in the process of working on or producing a cash flow. And one day, you're going to feel ready to actively participate. And you can either participate by bringing your own deal to our community, or you can work on the deals together with us as partners. So the deals is a big part of this live stream. We feel that by looking at real cases is where we learn the most and learn the fastest, right? Real cases instead of just talking about theory. And then we go over the market update that will impact the real estate investment world. For example, just recently we talked about a legislation change that's going to affect landlords, right? And that just became effective a week ago. And so, those are very helpful for investors that are actively doing business. And then we'll also share wealth building techniques and knowledge. So you can, leverage all this, right? The whole purpose of, real estate is using it to build our wealth and create generational wealth. And so we really hope that this Deal Makers live stream will continue to grow and really kind of bring great value to everybody that participate. And with that said, I want to say best of luck and happy investing. And if you have any questions, feel free to join our events and our office hours. Oh, I forgot to mention, we don't have a slide on the office hour. Our office hour is on Fridays at 9:30 a.m. Central Time. And you can find the link to join the office hours in usually our meetup groups or on our website. So just need to search for those. And if you have any questions, right, on any classes or actual deals, you need someone to kind of evaluate the deals for you, make sure it's a good deal. You need someone to come up with a recommendation of how much you offer on the lead that you're working on, for example. That's how you can leverage our office hours. All right. Now, with that said, I just want to end this session and thank you for joining us. And I hope to see you in our future classes soon.